Hey, I think it's straighter than it was too. Look at that. There you go. All righty. Shenanigans. This meeting is being live streamed. We good? All right. I will call the work session to order. First item on the agenda is a continued discussion, because why not spread this out over 3 weeks? 3 meetings of the budget update, utility, capital improvement, and special funds. By the time we're done with this budget update, it's time for the next budget update. So
I know.
you got to roll in,
Believe me,
to the next one. And then we got to make a new budget. According to the calendar.
Is this on? Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. Are you gonna control it? Or do you want to bring it up first so I don't mess up that part of it?
Got to get the smaller mouse pad out.
You want the picture in the picture?
There we go.
Thank you.
Need to Photoshop that picture.
All right.
No, we don't want snow, Chuck. Snow pictures. I know. Ready to go? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and board members. This is a continuation of the March 5th discussion on the general fund. We'll kind of go through all the rest of the funds here tonight. And this is, for the most part, the first quarter update of all these other funds. Before we get started here, Alderman Hartman asked about tax delinquencies last period. I did receive some of that data. Tax delinquencies for 2023 is totaling approximately $50,000. That is pretty low. That's about 4.4% of the property revenue. About 63% of that is in tangible property, real property, so cars, boats, and whatnot. Only 28% is in real estate. So I am going to start getting this. They are going to send this to me on a monthly basis. So anytime you want to know, I should be able to provide that with you, to you. All right. Just a quick overview. This is kind of what we went through last time. The first budget amendment was a repeat. On that day, we also did budget amendment number 2. A lot of this was increase in cost, a carryover from last year, and emergency funds. Also included down at the bottom there is a note about the COP bonds. We have budgeted $4,350,000, but in January of 24, we brought to the board resolution 1307, which added an additional $2,344,610. That extra is going to be used for the combined water and wastewater funds, the projects that we have going in there. We expect 6.5 million to go to funds. The rest, the remainder, just under 200,000, will be going to issuance cost. The remaining 200,000 roughly will go to issuance cost, which is legal fees, accounting fees, underwriting fees. But 6.5 will go to the projects. And that's anticipated. I did include the general fund slide once more. I did update those for the month of February. For the general fund revenues increased 463,000. The expenditures increased 644,000. And then down below, we have the projects that we anticipate to be funded by the general fund during 2024. The first fund that we're gonna discuss is the combined water and wastewater fund. This is by far the largest. This is an enterprise fund, which means the cost of the fund's goods and services are covered by user charges. So for water sales, wastewater sales, as you can see here, the revenues for the fund is projected. We increased that projection about 3 million. We added the 2.3 and additional COP bonds to that fund line. The expenditures increased about 200,000. That's due to budget amendment number 2. So in that revenue, that 13 million, we have about 6.7 in COP proceeds, 3.3 in water sales projections, and 2.5 million in wastewater projections. That gets us to about 12.5 million. The rest will be impact fees, connection fees, penalties, and any other revenue, which is pretty immaterial to that fund after those line items. Breaking that down just a little bit, the water sales, we did increase projections on both the water sales and the wastewater sales, and that is only because we were slightly above the percentage we typically are for the 3-year average. Here we're going to see the trending, the 3-year trending of the water sales and wastewater sales. The projection for the water sales is up about 24,000. For wastewater sales, it is up about 53,000.
Rick, I have a question on that, if I could, if I may, please.
Yep.
On the current, for the fiscal year 2024, is that in, does that include the increase, the 15% increase?
Yes.
And can we compare, or do you have the comparison in gallons? I'd just like to know on gallons how we are compared, because to see if we're below, I mean, actually, or I mean, in gallons where we're compared to last year.
I don't know if, I won't have that number, but possibly
Okay.
Chuck, have an idea? You had a better chance at that one than I did.
If
We
we
can
just
get that for you.
If we can just get that, that'd be good. So we can.
We'll get that
compare
for
just what we're selling. Okay, thank you.
All right, in the combined water and wastewater fund, these are the projects that we have slated for 2024. There's quite a few here. Just highlighting a few of these. For the COP bonds, those are earmarked for the West Bypass, the 144th Street lift station, and the Stone Ridge lift station.
Rick, I see that we're going to be cost sharing with the Smithville School District. Is that correct on the Stonebridge?
Yes.
Yep.
Also in here, and I'll go into this in just a little bit more next, but the Maple Lane River crossing, that'll be covered by the water impact fees. And then the water plant improvements, part of that will be covered by the wastewater impact fees. So beyond the water and wastewater revenue that we receive in this fund, impact fees are also collected. Those fees are assessed on new development based on the impact to the utilities infrastructure. Use of those funds are limited for the use on system enhancements and not on repairs. And it is to reduce the fee burden to the ratepayers for the new development. The balance of the impact water fees at the end of 23, so October 31st of 2023 was just over 1.4 million. We have the budgeted project at 700,000. The impact fees are something that is gathered over a couple of years and used on bigger projects. So we will go a couple of years and not use them and then have a project that needs it. The impact wastewater fees, we have a balance of 1.1, just a little over 1.1 million at the end of fiscal year 23. And we have the budgeted for the water plant improvements of just over 1 million earmarked for that. Here is just a quick overview of the fund itself. You can see in the projected revenues that increased almost by 3 million. This has to do with about 77,000 in water and wastewater fee increases or revenue increases. And then also the 2.3 million of additional COP proceeds. In the total expense line item, that increased about 200,000, and that is due to the budget amendment number 2. During our finance committee meeting that we had last week, it was also discussed about bringing a debt service line into the combined water and wastewater fund, so we can see we have a good comparison between revenues and debt. So we will be looking at doing that as well. Moving on to other funds. The capital improvement sales tax fund is part of the sales tax that is collected. It's a 1/2 cent sales tax. And it is for the financing, operating, and maintaining capital improvements. The sales tax went into effect in October of 2018 and expires December 31st of 2038. Those are the projects that we have earmarked for the capital improvement sales tax fund. 2 of those have some pretty large grants that we were lucky to receive. We do not have any revenue projections or expenditure projection changes in these funds. It's very early in the year. We anticipate after second quarter to be able to analyze this a little closer. Here is just a graph of the capital improvement sales tax revenue over the last 3 years. We have definitely had a good positive increase in the sales tax received. Transportation sales tax is another 1/2 cent sales tax, which was approved in July of 1989 and has no expiration date. Expenditures are limited to the construction, reconstruction, repair, and maintenance of streets, roadways, sidewalks, trails, and community-owned parking lots and bridges within the city. Again, we have no change in projections at this point. And those are the 3 projects earmarked for this fund. Again, a quick graph of how this has been performing over the last 3 years. Again, sales tax has done very well over the last year. Next, we have the Parks and Stormwater Sales Tax Fund. This accounts for a voter-approved half-cent sales tax, which became effective in October of 2020 with an expiration date in September of 2024. The sales tax may be used for the purpose of operating, maintaining, funding, and financing parks and recreation needs and stormwater control.
Rick, you'd mentioned the expiration 2024. That's not
Did I say 2020,
You did.
2040?
2040.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it's, yeah,
or
thank you.
2024. So, yes, sorry about that. September 2040.
When we had a June election.
Yeah, right. We're past. Solid Waste Fund, this was formerly called the Sanitation Fund. This is the other enterprise fund that the city has. The rates reflect the GFL contract that we have for trash, as well as the hazardous waste program that the city also runs. As you can see on those percentages, since this is the first quarter reporting, we are right at the 25% in both revenue and expenditures. Next is the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund. This fund supports the enterprise program that we have. We are at our capacity with enterprise at 38 vehicles at this point. This will allow us to start doing a little more analysis on what it was before and now what it is with enterprise going forward, since we are fully booked with all those vehicles. We do have 3 in development from enterprise, 6 in Parks and Rec, 11 in police, 6 in public works, 5 in streets, 6 in utilities, and 1 in water. And we also do have 5 client-owned vehicles that we do not plan on exchanging with enterprise. The debt service fund, the capital improvement sales tax fund is obligated to transfer money to the debt service fund to provide support for debt service and interest payments every year. Right now, we do have Series 18 and Series 19 debt issuance, and those are the expenses that we have in the debt service fund. We do have some other funds. We have about 8 other funds. We have the Common CID Fund, which is a 1% CID sales and use tax revenue from the Smithville Commons CID. We have the Special Allocation Fund, which holds the Smithville Marketplace, TIF property tax, and TIF eats. We have the Capital Improvement Projects Fund, which is the funding, financing, and operating of capital improvements. And we have the Donation Fund, which receives the financial donations used for citywide purposes. We did discuss this a little bit in detail in our Finance Committee meeting. Items that go through this 15,000 that you see for expense. On what we've done in the past, we did the drones out of this fund. But it does contain donations for like the animal pound, police, and parks legacy fund. We also do have another fund that's not listed here. It's at a zero balance and will be used when the 110 Smithville TIF starts. The four remaining funds are the police training fund, which provides assistance to Smithville law enforcement training. The technology upgrade fund or technology upgrades. Police DWI recovery fund, which provides DWI and alcohol education and enforcement. And the judicial education fund, which is the education and training of court personnel.
Rick, I have a question on that. And it just struck me, maybe we talked about this before, the court personnel. Who's the court personnel?
We-
So,
So we don't have, and is that fund, I believe, is it a zero, right?
It does have 3,400 in it.
Yes,
was-
please, thank you, chief.
It was at zero in the past few years.
That's a fund that's left over from when we transferred court from here over to Clay County. Those funds remain here to be continued to be used for judicial cost. They can be used for education with the prosecutor's assistant and with the prosecuting attorney. And we've got some stuff coming up both this fiscal year and into next that will cover some of that. So eventually that fund will zero out.
okay,
And the technology fund is another fund that was a transferred court fund that was a court cost that was discontinued before court transferred. And that fund's been dwindling and I believe it's in the $20 to $30 range right now. We tried to zero it out last year and I didn't quite get it all done. So we're about one transaction from zero and that one out too. So that fund will go away this year.
so when it says training of court personnel, who does it, where does it go to what personnel or to what training, I guess? Is it-
Well, we send our prosecutor assistant,
Okay,
Jeanette.
Okay.
To training
Okay.
multiple times. We also send our prosecutor to training
okay,
throughout the year. And they also attend there's a court clerks conference every year that not only covers stuff for court clerks, but they also have taken on the role of training prosecutors' assistants as those positions came up after Senate Bill 5 went into effect and kind of divided those two roles in the state of Missouri.
so when that fund you mentioned dries up, how are they gonna get trained in the
We'll have a
future?
budget for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
No, you're fine. All right, the last couple slides here, I just put together all of the projects. Obviously, it's gonna go to 2 pages just because of the size. Combined water and wastewater projects total just over 11 million. We have parks and recs, just over 1 million. Transportation and sales tax fund is just under 1.5 million. And the capital improvement sales tax fund is 2.4. And the general fund 2.7 for a total of 18,852,000. This is obviously preliminary. We'll know more throughout the year as we get closer and get a lot of these going from design and engineering phase into the construction phase on how much we will see during 2024.
Rick, I was gonna say, I appreciate you doing this. This is a really nice way to glance at all the projects in each of those funds. So
Right.
thank you for doing that and keeping that going.
All right, just a quick wrap up. Revenues are doing well. Expenses are also being kept in check. We haven't had any abnormal projects or emergencies that have hit the expense line item. Just a reminder on the COP budgeted bonds, we did increase that in January with an additional 2.3 for us to be able to go out to market. And during second quarter, we will probably have a little more change in projections for the funds. Any questions?
Don't have a question, but I know in finance, we talked about the fact like water and wastewater, like that's a standalone fund, like funds could be transferred out of there to help cover salary for like, individuals in, utilities
Right.
or admin that
Percentage.
still works with
Right.
utilities.
Yeah,
But that's the only way funds move,
correct.
correct? So
Right.
we kind of want to talk about that and just emphasize that so that everybody's definitely aware that that's
Yeah, so
a
we've got
standalone fund.
two positions that are partially funded, two basically general fund positions that are partially funded through the combined water and wastewater utility fund. That's Chuck's and Myra's because of the time that they spend working in support of utilities. The Public Works Department is utilities and streets, so half of their time roughly is spent on each of those areas. Streets is a general fund funded project, so that's taxes supporting that and utility rates support the utility side. We also do have funds from the utility fund that are transferred back to the general fund that we do just like any utility in town that charges a franchise, that we charge a franchise fee. Basically, we charge that same percentage back to utilities for the administrative work of city for, so those are two things that we do that are generally typical transfers and the way those are done.
Rick, I don't have a question, but I just want to say thanks for putting this together and the information provided well put out there, I thought, well explained. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Rick, I appreciate you talking about the impact fees. I think there's oftentimes a misconception that when a new development is built, that the city pays for that, and that's not correct.
That is not
And,
entirely
and on talking development, it's a different rate for residential and it's a different rate for commercial, and the commercial is much higher typically.
right.
So I just appreciate you kind of keeping an eye on that and including that in, because a lot of times that's some funds that we're receiving, but it hasn't been talked about a whole lot in the past. So
Okay.
appreciate you looking at that.
I will add one other thing that we talked about in finance, since we're kind of here on budget, about with CDs that the city has, that we just recently redid a lot of those CDs.
We did, and we do have
get-
another probably 4 coming up, 1 in April and the remaining in July. I plan in April to approach the bank and ask to have all of them redone at that point so we can lock in these higher rates,
Right.
not knowing what Fed will do here in the next couple of months.
And those higher rates are resulting in higher revenues for us.
It's
So that's
done
been,
wonders.
yes, yes.
It's been nice.
Pays for a playground, right, Matt?
And when you referenced, like the 1.4 million, then we had an impact fee balance. A lot of that's probably been has that been in CDs or just a regular interest bearing account?
That is
Since
Mixed.
since
more than likely, yeah,
is it a mixture? Okay.
it's a mixture, but more than likely just in our.
We did about
main
240,
pool,
I think,
yeah,
at impact fees at one point, and then some of the
Right.
other water, so.
So the impact fees just sit there and year after year, build onto each other until a bigger project
Yeah.
comes up.
But at least we're earning some interest
Yeah.
while it's sitting there.
Well, between CDs
Yeah.
and just the general fund, pooled fund, they're all at 5%.
Yeah, the bank's doing
Thank you.
take care of our money. And so are we.
All right.
Thank you. Matt, you up next? We got like 30 minutes just for Matt.
Yeah, shouldn't be too
And-
bad.
And Sherry and Sean are behind you to throw stuff at you if you mess up, so they're ready.
They were too nice. All right. So the Board of Aldermen directed staff to work with community stakeholders to review current practices relating to parades and provide recommendations for enhancements. To start the process, staff reached out to different municipalities within our region and requested details on their respective parade regulations, safety protocols, and best practices. Once we got that information, we drafted the first draft of rules and regulations, brought that forth to administration, got approval from there to move forward, and then set up meetings with stakeholders. Those stakeholders are the Lake Fest Committee, Light of Christmas Parade, and the Smithville School District. After meeting with each of them and becoming on and taking their feedback, making those changes, we're bringing this forward to you all in the work session. So this document here will be housed in the public facility use policy. That's why you see the V at the top of permits, parades, and special events. This document's held in the document center, and then once approved, we'll link it into the special event packet as well. If you don't mind, I'll go through each of these. I'll only receive one feedback, and once we get to the vehicle portion of that, I'll talk to you about what we think we want to amend there. So for VA parades, that section just kind of outlines what a parade is, and basically what would consider that to be a parade with street closures and a point of start and end. And then we get into the parade rules and regulation. This is kind of the meat portion of the packet here. All the events taking place in the city of Smithville must be approved through the special event permit. All events must be completed. All events must complete the special event application to be approved for a special event permit. To get that special event permit, they must meet the following. Safety. The responsible party is required to ensure that all rules, regulations, and procedures are followed by all entry participants. Parade marshals must be strategically positioned along the parade route. They will be a vital role in maintaining order, safety of spectators, and ensuring a smooth procession. A minimum of 6 parade marshals shall be placed along the busy sections of the route. Their duties involve enforcing parade rules, such as safety regulations and route adherence, while also coordinating with participants to maintain consistent spacing between units. Consumption of alcohol beverages at any time while participating in the parade is not allowed. Throwing and or distributing items of any kind from floats is strictly prohibited. Participants may distribute candy and other giveaways hand to hand by walking along the parade route next to spectators. Night parades are prohibited from throwing or distributing items of any kind. No one may step on or off the vehicle or any motorized entry until it is at a complete stop. Once the parade has started, no entry or exit from an entry is prohibited, except in the case of emergency. And then a safety meeting will be required before the parade date with city staff and responsible party at least 30 days prior to the parade. So vehicles, we were reached out by an alderman, you all, regarding this, and his comments made sense to us. And we would like to amend what is written here, and I'll read what we'd be changing it to. All vehicle/equipment operators participating in the parade must be properly licensed, and all vehicles/equipment must be insured with proof upon demand. By operating the vehicle/equipment in the parade, the owner/operator warrants that the vehicle is in sound mechanical condition with no known defects or safety concerns. When the vehicle and the one that was sent out to you all kind of didn't talk about like other equipment such as golf carts, tractor equipment, miscellaneous items that are throughout the parade. We want to make sure that we covered that, and then kind of reworded how it was as far as licensed and by the state of Missouri and things like that. So we think that that is better verbiage there and kind of covers all assets.
And if I could jump in just
Yeah.
quickly here then as well. The information that's included on the agenda doesn't include that change. What we would recommend then when we get to the agenda item, if you all so desires to make a motion to amend it, to include that language and then vote on the resolution.
Yep, thanks, Cynthia. I'll move on. Animals in consideration to other units in the parade, all participants with animals must immediately clean up any animal waste along the parade route. The city of Smithville is not responsible for picking up animal waste. Trash and cleanup, all parade staff, including the responsible party, participants, and volunteers, are collectively responsible for cleanup along the parade route and surrounding areas. Cleanup activities shall commence immediately after the conclusion of the parade and must be completed within a reasonable time frame. The responsible party must properly dispose of all trash and litter in designated bins or collection points provided by the organizer. No litter shall be left on the parade route or adjacent areas. Road closures, barricades, and signs. The responsible party is required to close streets with traffic barricades that have been pre-approved by the police chief at least 1 hour before the parade. Traffic barricades are not provided or set up by the city. Traffic barricades shall be rented by outside vendor. Traffic barricades must comply with the Missouri Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual. All signage posted within city limits requires approval through the temporary sign permit application. No tape is allowed on city light poles. And these rules and regulations for parades and special events exempt all funeral possessions. Those go through the Smithville Police Department separately. So if you all have any questions, I'll take that. We can make any changes needed to move forward.
Matt, I have some questions.
Yep,
You covered the tractors and go-karts that Dan.
Yes.
Alderman Yuldahl had covered, so thank you for that. Also, did we ever talk any more about the, when we talk about barricades? I think it was just mentioned on someone that had mentioned new business about the poles that go in there. Was that ever pursued? Was that just, that was it? I mean, was anything ever looked at that, or was that just, you just gave that piece and that was it? I was just a question.
Yeah, that was brought up in public comment, and I don't know if, I don't want to speak for if the board had moved forward to put that on a future work session or not.
Okay, yeah, that's probably something we should look at. I don't know, at least look at that later. I'd like to propose that in the future if we have a work session.
I know when we were originally talking about the design for streetscape and stuff, we looked at putting those in and they were very, very expensive.
Okay,
So I mean, we can readdress it, but I just know that was one thing that was considered when we were designing the downtown with the new streetscape.
if it's been done before, Melissa, I mean, I don't want to rehash something that's already been done.
Well, it's been a few years, so I'm just saying it had been discussed before, but I mean, if we want to bring it back up in another work session down the road after, I don't know, have city staff look at what the potential cost is for that.
Yeah, I know one of the things Matt and I started doing during events is parking vehicles at those intersections where cars are likely to drive through also because we have many vehicles, and I think the automated balusters that we're looking at were a few $100,000.
Yeah, Mayor, that's great. I mean, I know that the 11 police vehicles are going to be, used. So we've got Parks and Rec, we've got,
I think Matt
utilities
used
and
the
different.
backhoe too, but-
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a start, at least on the blockage, because it discourages people when they see a barricade. Well, I'm going to go around it. They see a vehicle blocking. I think that's a little more of a message, but
And when there's street closures, all those maps get approved by Chief Lockridge. And we've made an emphasis on making sure of that they're in the right spots, there's proper detours. And even on some locations, it may need almost 3 barricades with how wide some of the streets are.
I know Lake Fest gets theirs out quick. I know this year
Yeah.
we did have an issue with the school, and our school board president and city administrator had to stand there and block an intersection. So
Well, and that is one item that I was going to just say, that is one item that we discussed with the school district when we met with them, that, we very definitely need to ensure that the block, barricades are up in time and that there's somebody associated with those. The policy also outlines certain people throughout the downtown area, and we suggested that perhaps those be some that are stationed close to, because the barricades do If they're not placed right, they may blow. People, as you said, may move them. Some conversations that we might want to have about using vehicles to block it off. A lot of times with parades, vehicles are involved in the parade, but not all 11 that we have, exactly as you said. So that I think there are some things that we can talk about there as well. But a combination of resources.
And that was a hot topic in those discussions, and I think it'll still continue to be that when we have the mandatory safety meeting with staff and organizers.
I do think they probably really need to have somebody housed next to those barricades, because
Mhm.
I helped with one of the Main Street events a couple springs ago, and it was cold, but it was so windy that we did not have enough weight on them, that the wind just blew them right over. So there needs to be added protection there when those barricades are up.
Okay.
Got a question.
Yeah.
Back on the Christmas parade, we had a lot of cars setting in the parade route,
Mhm.
which the little kids got in between the parade and the parked cars, and
Yeah,
they got awful close.
yeah.
I didn't see no stipulations or instructions on,
So we said that streets may be closed at least an hour before, but those for a night parade probably should take that with a bigger notice, and we can talk about that in the 30-day, in that meeting, that safety meeting of, you're in a night parade, it's a little different than the ones that are during the day, and you may need to come in a lot earlier to start blocking off streets. And then they'll have those parade monitors as well along the route to help keep that safety in mind.
Night parades are prohibited from throwing and or distributing any items of any kind, so
Yep.
will not be any candy or
No.
anything even handed out.
No, and that was,
They did this last year,
yeah.
they just kept getting closer and closer
Mhm.
and closer. into
Yeah.
the parade.
and we met with that organizer, and she was okay with that policy, and she actually, I think, made that change herself before we even brought that forward to her.
So on the night parades, I didn't see anything in there about any lighting, any lights on the barricades. Is that something that is going to be looked at as well? I mean, as far as any type of lighting on the barricades? I don't know. I think that it should be, since it is providing for night protection. Probably should be looked at. I don't know, I'm hearing kind of a mixed bag here. Do we need to address this in a work session? I'm hearing some yes and some no. Do we need to address the whole thing in a work session after your safety meeting, maybe possibly,
Yeah.
Matt?
I know some barricades have the safety reflection on them, so that would help, but there are barricades out there that do have flashing beacons on them as well. But that would probably be I'm not sure, I'm sure the outside or the businesses may have that as an option, I'm just unsure.
Well, and it's also addressed in the section under Missouri Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual. So if it's what the state of the Missouri is using, that's what we should be using.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Matt, I think it's important too that I'm not sure if it's city staff, but parade organizers have a conversation with each of the floats. Obviously, we had an incident last time where the float didn't stop moving and young lady
Mhm.
got off high, and I mean, we've been somewhat fortunate, but it's just a matter of time. But I appreciate really putting some structure around this, and it's necessary. So
The responsible
that-
party will have a large role in making sure these are followed, and it's just gonna be part of hosting a parade.
And that is one of the things that we had talked about with all the parades as well. If you're walking the whole route. If you're riding the whole route. There's no alternating between those.
Yeah, and most of the changes we had here, for example, Lake Fest, they'd already made changes before we brought this forward, so we kind of just copied their lead on this as well.
And Matt, I might also, to the
Yeah.
question earlier of parking before parades,
Yeah,
I know the event organizers, one of the reasons that we have no tape allowed on city pools, event organizers can put signs up reminding people that parade from
such and such.
such and such date. And so please remove vehicles by X time.
And they're
And-
bright
and
orange
that
and the
as well.
chamber provides them, so
Exactly.
no reason not to use them.
Okay, Matt, another question is on the parade marshal, you saw a minimum of 6. Was that number come to by the length of the parade, the distance, or was it come by the intersection? What was
So,
that?
Yeah, so we Chief and I, we had sat down and talked about this. The busiest section of the parade route is from right there where the senior center is, to the end of the courtyard on Commercial. And so it would be one person each side per block. So
Okay.
you'd have one on each side and they would be able to walk back and forth on that block for the 3 blocks, so 6 total, one on each side of the parade.
Okay, thank you.
One additional thought, and I know that the chief, in the police really focus on kind of places to where emergency vehicles, if they needed to get to in a situation. I don't necessarily say we have to publish that, but maybe talking with like the parade organizers to say, hey, this is where we would bring in
That's-
ambulances or fire trucks or something if there was.
To their credit, that's one thing the Lake Fest crew has done diligently. They get myself and Matt and Chief and everybody in a room a couple times a year to talk about the safety plan and what they're gonna do, because it is a concern for them, and we've used a lot of what they recommended for these other events as well. And during even the homecoming parade, they were able to get in and out pretty quickly, even though it was the busiest intersection that it happened, so.
We should use them as a role model,
For sure.
the Lake
Okay.
Fest Committee.
So I've got a question on the parade marshal.
Yes.
When they're out doing their marshaling, will they have specific shirts that they're wearing so individuals will know that, hey, I'm
Yeah.
authorized to be telling you?
Yeah, that was something
Here,
that Lake Fest
too.
and the school district both brought up, that they're gonna get specific shirts for staff.
Okay.
And then Lake Fest does volunteer shirts as well for all their volunteers. Question.
Any other questions for Matt? We got 14 minutes. You need it.
I just want to thank you. I think you've done a really good job here with the other
Yeah. that's good.
organizations and stuff with what you've come up with here. So thank you.
No problem.
You have that language typed out also, in case we need
Yeah, I'll
it.
give it.
Thank you.
I want to echo Alderman Wilson's comments to Matt, but also thank the parade organizers who were all willing to meet with him, and we're all very constructive in either being proactive in identifying some solutions or very responsive and receptive to those changes. So we appreciate that, to make those parades as safe and enjoyable as possible for everyone.
I just want a picture of the police officers checking the Shriner's license. Shauna, could you make sure? Yeah. Yep.
But that was my concern is, I know my dad's, long semi, he doesn't carry insurance on that, but it is a golf, it's actually a go-kart. It's, along.
Yeah.
So do they have to carry insurance on the recreational vehicles, like your golf cart? I know that, like, we carry insurance as a whole, for the organization. I need to talk about the bar.
And I think that's how the language is written, to account for those pieces of equipment also.
Borrow that for our marshals, so not only t-shirts, they'll be wearing reflective visors. And then I work down at 12th or 11th and Walnut. During Big 12, they put their plow trucks in front of each road.
Yeah.
And so that might be something, you're not gonna be utilizing those during the summer, for
Mhm,
us at least.
mhm.
It might be something that once we get all our vendors in, maybe a recommendation. I know I'm just taking off here, guys. And then, we also need to leave chops and jeans, anyone that.
Their alley.
That's not an out, so they can get in and out. We always try to make sure our side does, they can get one way or out.
Yeah.
We're taking up pretty routes so that we're not combusted right here in this little bitty area. We're just coming down Commercial where the roads are wider.
And Matt has already provided the maps that keep access to those places. So when any of the events come in, they have to pick one of those options. They can't just close whatever roads they want.
And we actually have a process where we have a 8-foot flag, so if there's emergency, you're to take the flag, and then INRAD and police know to find that flag. We'll tell them what corner we're at, but they can locate us, get that flag for emergency.
Anything else from Matt? Good. All right.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn work session.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All opposed, say no. Stand adjourned until 7 o'clock. I haven't had much of that water. Hey, chief.